for a closer look at how the IMF and the World Bank help countries fight climate change. Joining us is Valerie Laxton, Senior Associate for Development Finance Institutions at the World Resources Institute. Valerie, welcome back to the show. Unlike other networks, I'm not going to debate the issue of climate change. I'm going to make the assumption that it's here. It's not the issue who caused it, it's how do we fix it, right? And one of the biggest issues is rich countries generally don't really want to pay for the whole thing. Poor countries want rich countries to help support this. And this seems to be a very key sticking point in the last decade that we've been covering this issue. Have we moved the ball forward in the past couple of years?
Right. I think the ball is moving. It's moving slowly. But, you know, in the context of the IMF and World Bank's meetings currently taking place in DC, their role is really to monitor countries' economic and financial systems so that countries can develop in a reasonably predictable environment. And countries are now impacted by climate-related events very strongly. It has an effect on their economies, and think about how cyclones are destroying manufacturing plants, floods that damage infrastructure in many countries, really, like the huge floods that took place in Pakistan last year. These disasters are increasing in frequency and cost lives. And then on top of causing losses in life, they affect agriculture, manufacturing, and the livelihoods that depend on crop or other economic activities. So it makes investing in climate adaptation and resilience both a question of safety for the populations and sustenance of their livelihoods in terms of economies.
We have asked governments to step up, and I think there's been some successes, but also some failures as well. Then you have the sort of quasi-government organizations, the NGOs, if you will, with like the World Bank and IMF, and they're supposed to help, I guess, finance some of these projects that may not have a perhaps monetary benefit, but certainly societal benefit. And then there's the private sector. Let me start with the NGOs. Specifically, the IMF and World Bank, they're supposed to play a role. There is a big focus on it. How are they doing?
Well, the IMF really, part of its role is to help identify the risks that are posed by climate change. And as they monitor each country's economic developments in their surveillance activities, and the World Bank has monitoring activities too and diagnoses country risks in those countries, they can include those climate-related risks much more upfront into their analysis. It also includes capacity building to these countries on how to strengthen their economies in the face of climate change and how it's impacting their economies, and also advice. They can really advise on public finance management to devise options that are tailored to the country's needs, notably when budgets are limited, like they are a lot right now. It's the case right now. So these are solutions that the IMF and World Bank can find, but many solutions are outside of the remit of the IMF's hands, and others take the baton, such as the World Bank, for example, or other development finance institutions that provide climate finance, or specialized funds like the Green Climate Fund or the Adaptation Fund. So this comes on top of what countries themselves are doing by mobilizing their own capabilities to face the impacts of climate change.
If the cause of climate change is partially dependent on the carbon emissions, and the number one carbon emissions is in large part energy, specifically coal, we know what the cause is, we know what the solution is, which is basically to reduce our reliance upon, say, coal and also fossil fuels, such as driving. Wouldn't it be really easy for the IMF or the World Bank or any NGO to say, look, we need to reduce our reliance on coal, and we need to increase the energy efficiency or the miles per gallon or kilometers per gallon on vehicles? I mean, those two things alone would make a huge difference for the world, would it not?
So there are a number of things behind this, and it's not so easy to implement. It really brings us to the question of how to transition from one source of energy to the next, and to the fundamental divide about how to finance that transition from these energies that you just talked about, and transition to clean sources of energy. And that takes some financing. And currently it's hard to finance these. So you're right in the sense that IMF and World Bank can really lay out a menu of options and discuss with other development partners what are the pathways and the solutions to transition these economies from where they are at now to trajectories that are low carbon and resilient, and follow development pathways or economic pathways and trajectories, which will bring us closer to what the world needs in terms of the climate goals.
Right. Valerie, I appreciate the analysis on this. I hope we can all get on the same page and just get there faster. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.